So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to ZeroStack. In the next 2 hours, we are going to take you through ZeroStack, who we are, what we do, how do we do it, and why we exist as a company. So let's just start with the introductions. My name is Ajay Gulati. I'm the CEO and co-founder of ZeroStack. Prior to this, I was at VMware for a long time. And at VMware, I have worked for several years on the ESX hypervisor itself, have worked on vCenter, have built a couple of foundational technologies in vCenter, such as DRS, storage IO control, and also worked on the vCloud layer, which is the cloud level layer on top of vCenter that VMware has. In addition to that, I have worked on consulting with a couple of storage and networking startups as well. Along with me, we'll have a couple of other presenters. Kiran, who is the CTO and co-founder of ZeroStack. Prior to this, Kiran was a startup company called Bromium. He was the employee number 1 there. Bromium does virtualization-based security, and they literally run 400 VMs on this tiny laptop, so a lot of hardcore virtualization built into the platform. And also, Kiran spent many years at AMD working on CPU-level virtualization. We also have here Deep Bhattacharjee, who is the head of products at ZeroStack, and prior to this, Deep was head of products for cloud at Canonical, and prior to that, he was at VMware for several years doing product management for vCenter. We also have Justin King, who is our customer solutions architect, and prior to this, Justin was at VMware for about 8-9 years, and before that, he was at Neverfail. Justin has worked for many years with VMware customers. So there are a lot of people here who are very well aware of all the existing technologies in terms of virtualization, VMware, cloud. In addition to just 4 of us, we also have a great team, and most of the team comes from companies like Google, Nutanix, EMC, Symantec, NetApp, and Groupon, and other companies. So we have a lot of talent in terms of storage, networking, virtualization, and cloud. So let me go over the brief agenda, what we are planning to cover in the next 2 hours. We are going to give an overview of the company where I'll walk through why ZeroStack exists and what problem we are trying to solve. Then Kiran would walk you through a technical deep dive of the solution, what we have really built as the core IP and how we are different from existing solutions. And then Deep and Justin would walk you through different demos where they would look at the admin day from a day 0 to day 1 to day n, and also how a user interacts with the cloud in the beginning and as they consume the cloud. And finally, I would summarize with some of the future directions we are taking as a company and what's coming down the road in next 1 to 2 years. So if you look at IT and enterprises today, everybody is on their journey to cloud. And the big motivation for that is everybody is looking for that business agility, self-service for developers, where they can also scale on demand, and an application-centric platform where they can deploy applications without worrying too much about how they would perform and not trying to tune their applications to some other platform. And also to avoid the shadow IT problem that a lot of enterprises are now dealing with, where developers are going outside and consuming resources on public cloud without their control. But there are several paths from going from where they are to a cloud-based model. And there are 3 key paths that we have seen. One is the vendor-driven private cloud. Second is do it yourself with OpenStack and 7 other pieces of software that you stitch together to create a private cloud. And third, if you really just give up, you say this is too complicated for me and I don't want to deal with all this, you use a public cloud. So over the last year, while building ZeroStack, we have spoken to almost 100 customers. And here is what we have heard from them about some of the challenges with existing solutions. In case of vendor-driven private cloud, a lot of customers are worried about not only just being logged into a vendor and then dealing with the pace at which that vendor innovates or provides them new features and APIs, but also most of these solutions, they have a lot of moving pieces that you have to stitch together to actually build a cloud. Cloud is not just one installation of one software or something. You have to have servers, storage, networking, a lot of software components, and you need a team who knows how to build a cloud, which typically is different from just your regular IT admins. Second, we came back from OpenStack Summit Tokyo a couple of weeks ago, and we saw that there are almost 5,000 developers on OpenStack now from all of the major vendors that we know of. There are also a lot of companies like Yahoo, PayPal, Best Buy, Workday, who are using OpenStack in their environment at a large scale. But these companies have made significant investment in building that platform. In many cases, it is dozens of developers and engineers and maybe a year or two to build the whole platform and then giving it to developers inside the company to consume. And we have talked to several enterprises who started down this journey saying, okay, let's just build it with OpenStack themselves. And what they realize very quickly is that not only there are too many pieces to put together here, it's also OpenStack by itself is not a private cloud. You have to build a lot of stuff around it. You have to have a monitoring solution, dashboarding, something to help with log analysis. And you have to get all these pieces together to actually build a cloud. Finally, there is always a public cloud option where if you don't want to deal with any of these complexities, you basically try to use public cloud itself. And there people have to deal with now how the public cloud is constructed, the noisy neighbor problem, the performance unpredictability. Many of the customers told us that the variance they see on day-to-day on AWS is too high. And also, it's a great solution when you are starting, but once you have built a big enough platform and you're running a lot of workload on AWS, it doesn't turn out to be that cheap. There is actually a very famous saying in Valley that says, AWS is cheap if you fail, it's very expensive if you succeed. And a lot of companies out here who have built initially on AWS, which makes perfect sense to do, once they reach a certain scale, they are running 24/7 workloads there, they realize the cost is too high and they try to move in-house. And now they're exactly in the spot where they have people who want to consume a cloud, but they don't have people who can build a cloud. So how do we simplify the journey of enterprises to actually go to a private cloud? There are three main goals that we have in mind as we build the solution. One, we want to provide a fully functional cloud. We don't want to build one layer among 7 layers and say, bring 6 layers from somebody else, and here is our layer that does this one particular piece. We provide a cloud which is built for ground up. We are actually in the demo today going to start with this bare metal hardware, build a cloud on it, and deploy applications on that. And the unique thing I find with IT industry, which is different from the car industry here, is that in car industry, if you build a really new car with a lot of features, typically it's hard to beat the cost of existing vendors. You would have a Tesla, but it's going to be pretty expensive. In IT, you can actually build a Tesla which is going to be half the cost of today's BMW. And because of using commodity hardware and the power of software, you can do some of those things. Second, we want to have the cloud built in minutes, not in weeks or months. And as I said, we'll actually build the cloud today in the presentation itself. And finally, once you have built the cloud, that's just the day zero of the problem. Now you need to have a team that can actually manage, operate, run the cloud from then onwards. And we'll show that in order to either build the cloud or manage it or operate it, you don't need a large team of experts to do it. So we are trying to create a solution which is different from what exists today. So you cannot be doing the same thing and expect a different outcome. So we have created a new model and a new approach to actually building the cloud. So how are we really different? When we started the company, we looked at the two existing dominant models, the public cloud model and the private cloud model. In case of public cloud, everybody loves the ease of use of public cloud, the scale on demand of public cloud, but they worry about the lack of predictability in performance, cost, security, and other factors. In case of private cloud, you get all of those factors, but now you have to deal with all the infrastructure decisions, you have to deal with complex software integration, you need a team of experts. So at ZeroStack, what we have built is a new way of deploying, building, managing a cloud, which we call as cloud managed infrastructure, where it gives you the experience of a public cloud. You log into a portal, you do your work as if you might be logging into a public cloud. But whatever you do actually happens on-premise private cloud deployment. And you still maintain all the data ownership, your workload ownership, and everything is running behind your firewall. Now, how do we do it and why is this different? If you simplify a cloud model or a cloud stack, there are 4 pieces to the stack. One is the underlying piece where you have some hardware on which you are running your applications and data. Okay. Second is you have the management software that does the provisioning and takes care of the hardware, software, networking, and other pieces. For example, in case of VMware, the underlying platform would be hardware plus ESX. Management layer would be something like vCenter. The third is the operations layer. Once you are running a cloud, you need a operations layer to make sure that everything is running fine. And that, for example, in case of VMware, it's VCOps or vCenter operations. In OpenStack, you may deploy a separate cluster with 6, 7, 8 nodes, which acts like your operations cluster. And finally, you have the user workflows on top. That is how users are consuming the cloud, where they log in, they have an API, they can do all their work. If you look at public cloud, all of the stuff is outside on somebody else's cloud. If you look at private cloud, everything is your own headache. You are taking care of everything. You have to get the hardware, software, operational cluster, and all of these pieces you have to stitch together. At ZeroStack, when we looked at this, we decided to split up some of the pieces. And in order to simplify, what we have built in our solution is the infrastructure, applications, and data and management that stays local behind your firewall on premises. But the operations layer and the consumption model from the user is actually in cloud. And that is where we are running our own private cloud where that piece of the software is running. And that, I think, in some sense highlights how we are different from a lot of other traditional vendors. For example, if you look at somebody who is giving a OpenStack distribution or somebody who is giving a suite of software to build a cloud, that's where the difference comes in, because what they are trying to do is a traditional private cloud itself. Now, if I double click into this architecture itself, because once you have this architecture, what's actually building it is you get the control and visibility from the underlying infrastructure layer, and you get the feature agility, which is, if you look at public clouds, they release a feature every few weeks. Given that we have user workflows in SaaS, we also release features every few weeks. Actually, since we did our beta and we launched to customer deployments, we have added almost 30 features in last 3 months itself. And we also provide real-time insights and preventive analytics as part of that operations layer. So let me just double click on this and talk a little bit about what are the two exact components here. To build the on-premises cloud, we have a ZeroStack Z block, or the cloud building block, which is the box right here. And this is basically the building block for a cloud. All you need to have a cloud is this box. You can start with one, and you can keep adding as many as you want.
And do you have a HCL for your hyperconverged node over there?
Great question. So this is basically, we have 4 different flavors of this node. The node that we are displaying here is essentially a balanced node. It has 64 cores, it has half a terabyte of RAM, and it has 6.4 gig of SSD and 16 gig of hard disk. And that's basically one node. Now, if you want something where you care about more CPU or more memory, you can get a different flavor with double the CPU or double the memory. If you want IO intensive, you can actually put more SSDs or more hard disks. So depending on the workload, you can actually pick. Now, these are the 4 flavors that we are going out with. So we don't have a very wide HCL with different vendor solutions or something, but that's our own converged solution, which has the hardware and all the software converged into it.
So you guys are obviously assembling your own hardware, but are you building your own hardware? So, in other words, are those off-the-shelf components, or are you custom building certain aspects of what you have there?
So it's mostly off-the-shelf components. Okay. We are not really building any specific or fancy hardware.
Okay, so HCL would be pretty much, that's an HP, or that's a compactor, that's et cetera.
Exactly. And it's hyper-converged, so customers don't need to care about the HCL. That's something that you worry about.
Yes, exactly, absolutely. And as I said, this is the only building block in the cloud. You start with this and you just keep on adding more. There is no special nodes in the system. You don't have to say, here is my management cluster, operations cluster, here is my compute cluster, storage cluster. This is the building block. You just put one in and you can put 50 more in. The cloud would keep on growing.
And what if you need a disparity between your compute and your storage? How do you achieve that?
So you can so one thing we actually tell customers that they should start with a few nodes itself.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then as part of the ZeroStack Cloud portal, we are collecting the data in terms of the overall events, stats, usage, health monitoring, and then we actually tell them what kind of node they should be buying. So actually, as part of demo, Deep would show that once we get data from customers in terms of their usage, we can actually tell them that, look, Mr. Customer, you started with one kind of node, but that doesn't seem to be fitting right with your application dimension. You should have a different kind of node. And they can mix and match these nodes. They don't have to be identical in the cloud.
So what's the NIC backend on these, networking? I mean, how are you handling all of that? Because obviously, if you go with like a Metapod or you use something like Blade servers and things like that, you typically have more robust networking capabilities as far as speeds and feeds, right? So how are you guys handling that on this box?
So this box has 4 servers. Each server has 2 10 gig NICs in the back.
Okay.
And we do our own internal bonding to give them overall 20 gig and also give high availability. You would put this box in a rack and you would put those in on the top of the rack switch, which is 10 gig again. So now essentially you would have an internal cloud with a 10 gig fabric. Now, depending on if you do multiple racks, you would put another switch on top, and it depends how much bisection bandwidth you design for. In terms of from the box to the SaaS layer itself that ZeroStack is running, we actually don't need much bandwidth. So that's not a big consumer of the network. Yes, Curtis.
And I don't know, maybe I'm jumping ahead, but you were comparing things to OpenStack. Are you using OpenStack as part of it? You're just sort of packaging it and...
Great question. So we are leveraging some components from OpenStack in order to build this solution. We are leveraging few key components, but pretty much everything else in order to build the private cloud, create a cluster, scale it out, shrink it in, all of that is built by us.
What are the OpenStack components that you're using?
So we are leveraging, for example, OpenStack Nova. We are leveraging Keystone. We are leveraging Cinder and Glance and Neutron.
Okay. That's
it. And these are the components. If you look at OpenStack project, it's basically one project with a lot of umbrella things. And they also say what is the maturity of each component. These are pretty much one of the most mature set of components that we have. And a lot of other stuff we have just built on our own. And I think when Kiran would talk about exactly what we have built, he'll actually discuss how much value we are adding and how we are adding that value around these things.
So just a quick, it's a 4-node KVM hyper-converged OpenStack appliance managed from the cloud.
Managed, exactly. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. So essentially, both of these things put together makes the ZeroStack cloud platform. And now you can have multiple sites. You can deploy this hardware on different offices, but everything would be visible in the SaaS layer, and you can see all of your regions and availability zones from the single SaaS layer.
So it's safe to say you're just leveraging the native OpenStack APIs that are inherent in each of those features to layer your portal on top of that, and also to do your deployments in your environment and to manage your environment.
True. And also I think the API is pure 100% OpenStack API. Underneath, there are things that we have built to give a fully functional cloud. Because if you notice here, we are not asking customers to bring any separate hardware or storage or networking or anything else. This is basically you rack and stack this node, and you can build a cloud on this node in about 15 minutes. And then you can start consuming the cloud. And actually, today we'll actually go through building a cloud from scratch and then consuming that cloud.
And the cloud portal you're hosting, that's something. So we get to it from anywhere to your...
Exactly. You could be sitting in a coffee shop and you can log into the cloud portal. You will put your company ID, username, password, and you can start working as if you are working even on a public cloud. It's just that when you put a request on that portal, the request is being executed on the on-premise infrastructure.
And is the the portal unnecessary for basic functions like HA, maybe DRS?
So the portal is mainly so that's your consumption area, and that also gives you analytics and other things. Yeah. In case you lose connectivity to portal, let's say, you can connect to the local cluster itself and you can do all the basic operations. Everything is still working fine.
There is a local cluster you connect to. You don't have to connect to local hosts.
You don't have to connect to localhost. You would connect to a local endpoint, which is the API endpoint, and you can say, create a VM for me.
Okay.
So that's basically, if you lose the portal access, there is some functionality that you obviously lose, but everything that you are running would keep on running, and you can do basic operations without any problem.
So when I'm building an application, I write to the local API and not to the cloud, not to the API hosted by ZeroStack. So
You can actually choose to do either. You can, when you are, let's say you write a API script, you can point the script to the cloud, it would work fine as it is.
Okay.
No
But if I
problems.
want for that functionality to continue in an event of a connectivity loss, I could.
You can point it to the local, even that would work fine, exactly.
And is the cloud platform hosted on your hardware here, or is it hosted in AWS?
It's not on AWS at all. That actually would be very ironical that we are a
Right.
company selling private cloud and we are not running our own private cloud.
I had to ask.
It wouldn't be that surprising, though.
No, it wouldn't be that.
I see. Okay, no, it's nothing on AWS.
So you've got your cloud management portal up here in your cloud, okay, and you're connecting back to your on-premises solution. What route does that take in terms of networking, and can you basically get it to take different routes based around a failure scenario? Say, right, guys, go over my Azure Express route normally. If that's not available, then go over my site-to-site VPN. If that's not then available, can I go over a SSL tunnel? Can you do that kind of stuff? Yes.
So the basic route that it would take is there is a port 443 going out that the machines are connecting to the outside. And we don't need any other firewall port to be open or any other configuration to be done. Now, if that is not working for some reason, you can actually connect through VPN to your data center, and then you can use the local API, because now VPN makes it easy for you to use those IP addresses directly.
Yeah. So long as I've got a route to my instance, essentially in the cloud, that I can connect in. Yeah, that's what you're saying. Cool.
True.
Got it.
So just to summarize here, and I want to quickly reach to the demo part of the presentation here. Just to summarize, I think the key benefits that we have heard from customers that why they love ZeroStack as compared to existing solutions is, one, they don't have to do any complex software integration. They don't need any experts for management. They can start with a single node and just scale based on demand. They don't have to do a lot of upfront investment. And since we are a SaaS-based solution, our feature agility is similar to a public cloud. We add features pretty much every 2 weeks. We add new workflows. We add new components into the, yes?
Sorry. And can you create your own workflows as well, or not?
Can you connect your own workflow?
Can you create your own workflows?
But that's OpenStack.
I mean, what would be an example of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, we'll show some workflows, and then we can come back of how you would like to have a user-created workflow. And finally, the solution is designed for multi-site deployment. As you can see, you can easily put these converged nodes on different sites, and you can create different clouds, and you can see all of them in the cloud portal.